Disney has a big problem. His name is Jimmy Kimmel, and he is an inveterate liar. But beyond all of that, and the chronic ability to not tell the truth, they need to figure out what to do with him, because his time's already running out. We're getting close to the end of a contract, and maybe he expires like Colbert is going to over there at CBS. But we can't count on it. Disney is a terrible decision maker with terrible leadership, and there's a chance that they're even more terrible than you imagine. I have several examples of a lot of lies and some mystery around what happened to Thursday night's show last week on November 6th, because nobody seems to understand why they couldn't make that show and yet made a podcast to describe some of the terrible actions they've taken with their children. Yeah, it's that serious. On that note, here we go. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder, I'm trying to get to 50K, so double check you're still subscribed down there. That's step one. Double check that you hit the alerts button, the little bell icon down there, and turned on all notifications. And third, hit the thumbs up right now. That kind of interaction and the comments you leave at the end of the video are incredibly important to me and apparently to YouTube. And with that being said, let's talk about the mystery deepening as Jimmy Kimmel's show suddenly is canceled. That's right. This story came out on my birthday, November 7th, just a few days ago. It's a short one and it comes from Yahoo. So, I mean, at least they have some people working on these things. When you look at it, Jimmy's long-running night program has abruptly gone dark, leaving viewers and Hollywood insiders scrambling for answers, of which there weren't any. The host's Thursday night episode was unexpectedly pulled just hours before air, reportedly over a personal matter. Can't imagine what that would be. Everything's hunky-dory in his life, right? Or at least that's what we're led to believe. The mysterious cancellation has fueled widespread speculation, as neither Kimmel nor ABC has addressed the reason behind the last-minute change. Well, why would they? They don't normally know what is happening or why it's happening. Of course, that leaves viewers confused. Well, and many of us out here have been paying attention to the late night shows because they are definitely going down the tube. The episode was slated to feature actor David Duchovny, of Stranger Things star Joe Keery, and singer Madison Beer, who actually was one of the people that let us know early via a post, I believe, on Instagram, that she wasn't going to be there. Instead, an older October 28th episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live aired in its place. Now, you'd think this happens a lot, right, culture? No, very rarely. In fact, goes kind of hand in hand with the strange situation that happened around Jimmy Kimmel telling lies about the Charlie Kirk assassination and then promptly being canceled. Well, suspended, whatever fancy word you want to use. And they went on to lie about that because, hey, it's a chronic liar situation. Inveterate means chronic, and that's Jimmy Kimmel to a T. From that Park Place, Jimmy Kimmel and wife has misled their kids by telling them Trump was behind the ABC suspension, which is a lie, but that's normal. I honestly feel like I'm always talking from the frame of this is a normal thing for Disney and their employees. Disney has a lying problem. They have difficulty with the truth, which is why they buy into all the ideology and the garbage out there that's destroying our culture and our society. Disney is not the good guy. They hate America. It's pretty clear. Rarely do you get to see the patriotic displays that were once so revered from the Disney company. And, well, they're destroying a piece of Americana right now in Walt Disney World by removing what would have been the frontier area. I don't know what they'll call it in the future, but it's going to be a disaster. But we all knew that. Marvin Montanaro leads out the story this way. It turns out Jimmy Kimmel doesn't just spread misinformation on the air. He also misleads his own kids. This is a broad problem. This is a personality that we just can't be exposed to or shouldn't be exposed to by a major network television station. When you think things can't get stranger in late night television, Jimmy Kimmel and his wife, Molly McInerney, have managed to top themselves in a recent episode of We Can Do Hard Things podcast. Jimmy Kimmel and McInerney admitted that they told their kids President Trump was responsible for the channel's recent suspension from Jimmy Kimmel Live. This is an example of that podcast they were able to make it to untrue and yet couldn't make it to the show. It's a shocking admission that not only because it's untrue, but because it reveals how far the late night host and his family have gone in politicizing even their private lives. And the story doesn't stop there. Misinformation at home, according to Newsbusters, which transcribed the interview of McNerney explaining how the conversation unfolded at home. Jimmy let them know, he said, "My show has been suspended," and our daughter immediately burst into tears. "I'll have to sell my boo-boos?" Son asked if President had done this, and we looked at each other and we didn't quite know how to answer that question. Kimmel's chimed in, "I think I said yes." McNerney confirmed that both parents replied simultaneously. "We actually both said yes at the exact same time," she admitted. "We said yes. Yes, we did." And this is a problem of character, let's say, and it reveals both of these people's character. It's not very good, which is one of the reasons why the show's not very good, because, well, his wife, McNerney, is a contributor to his show. The entire show is basically just political propaganda, slanted coverage on every element that they cover, and obviously a complete lack of humor, revealing it just to be a propagandist show. What do you expect from an inveterate liar? Exactly this. And as Marvin writes, that's right, Jimmy Kimmel and his wife flat out told their young kids that the President of the United States personally had their father's talk show suspended, which couldn't be farther from the truth. Not only that, you had affiliates that were up in arms over exactly the kind of garbage that Kimmel had been pushing very recently. And, well, the pushing of misinformation makes anything associated with ABC News questionable, kind of like the BBC. The problem, of course, was that there's no universe where that's even a little true. ABC, not the White House, suspended Kimmel after his own misleading comments sparked massive backlash during a monologue in September. Kimmel falsely claimed that the MAGA gang was trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, which is precisely what he was. The statement was quickly condemned, and as misinformation, there was no evidence connecting the alleged shooter of Charlie Kirk to the MAGA gang, as Kimmel described. In fact, there was more evidence at the time connecting him to the extreme left-wing ideology and the anti-FA folks. It was blatant misinformation, with conservative pundits like Megyn Kelly going so far as to claim it was willful disinformation. And to be fair, I expect nothing less from ABC and ABC News. They've been lying for a long time, and they've had to pay the price multiple times, and one of those times was because of Snuffleupagus. There's going to be more. They can't help themselves. There's no true leadership within ABC and ABC News, which is how we still have a show that claims to be a news show called The View. Worse yet, and this is from the story, the claim was reckless enough that the ABC affiliates and internal executives reportedly demanded action. The network responded by sidelining its star until the outrage subsided. But that's not what actually happened. That's the real reason, though, for the suspension, not an act of presidential vengeance, yet rather own up to the situation. Kimmel and McNerney spun a political fairy tale for their children, and apparently for this podcast they were on's audience. It's a bizarre choice for sure. It's difficult to overstate how bizarre this choice was. Instead of explaining that Daddy had crossed the line on live television, because we can't make Kimmel look bad, and made a mistake that could be learned from, they invoked President Trump as a villain in the bedtime story of their own making. It's the same reflex we've seen from much of Hollywood in recent years, never able to accept blame, because when something goes wrong, just blame Trump. Now, honestly, I wouldn't expect anything less or different from Jimmy Kimmel than exploiting his children whenever he can and misleading them, which means that their worldview is going to be significantly compromised. And the fact that his wife is willing to do the same is pretty disgusting. And there's a bigger problem here than even that. There's a problem that they both can't see beyond their TDS. In a story coming to us from Fox, Jimmy Kimmel's wife is angry all the time after losing relationships with Trump voting family members. Again, from the same podcast, Molly McNerney says relatives' support of President feels like betrayal of her husband and her family. No, just betrayal of the politics that she adheres to like a cult member. At least that's the way I see it. Let me know if you see it differently down in the comments section below. But late night host Jimmy Kimmel's wife, television writer Molly McNerney, again working on his program, revealed she has lost relationships with some of her Trump voting family members on the We Can Do Hard Things podcast Thursday, which was right before they were supposed to be making their television program. Strange, huh? Well, following her husband's spat with President Trump over the show being temporarily suspended in September, again, that wasn't the spat. The spat was the lie. I hate that these articles are being written this way. McNerney told the podcast host she felt betrayed after some of her family members voted for the current president. Well, I'm sorry, lady. That's what voting means. You take your set of beliefs, apply it to the candidates, and figure out if they align with your beliefs. And if that's the case, you vote for them. You usually don't vote for the people that are all in favor of ending life. You usually vote for people who want to preserve America and America's lives. That's just kind of the choice that they made. Disney briefly suspended ABC's Jimmy Kimmel Live after the host's remarks about the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk sparked widespread backlash because they were misinformation. Willful misinformation, as Megyn Kelly said. After an about face from Disney, the liberal comedian returned the following week. Well, he shouldn't have, but he did. And now Disney is stuck with, again, an inveterate liar, which means chronic liar, that Jimmy Kimmel is. At the end of the day, to me, there's really only one thing that happened here. A person who chronically lies continued to lie, even to his own children. And I ask your opinion now in the comments section below. Do you believe that was the right thing to do? Do you think Jimmy Kimmel lying to his kids and his wife backing him up, do you think that's going to have a positive or negative worldview on those children? Do you think that they're just so used to lying they can't help it? Or do you think that they are part of a cult that is so wrapped up in TDS, they can't see the fact that America needs to be more centered on Americans and everything else that comes with it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, and let me know if you still watch Jimmy Kimmel. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya, but not watching Jimmy Kimmel. How about you?